The views expressed, opinions given, and any communication made between the hosts and guests of What Are You Afraid of Horror and Paranormal show do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Para-X Radio, EMC Network, or all services that play this show. The hosts and services are not responsible for the actions of their guests, and the original rights of all intellectual property is retained by the creator, and all work is used with either permission or Creative Commons license. The show is for entertainment purposes only. I'm horror author T. Fox Dunham.
And I'm horror author and filmmaker Phil Thomas.
And tonight we're asking you,
what are you afraid of? Philadelphia's horror home with hosts T. Fox Dunham and Phil Thomas.
So we love to speak to all sorts here on the show. We're really exploring the darkness, but we're also exploring people and the many great stories that they hold inside, and that's what we're all about at What Are You Afraid of Horror and Paranormal show. You can find us on Para-X Radio Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or go check out the website at www.whatareyoufraidofpodcast.com, where you can find all previous 110 episodes, plus expanded content, articles, wonderful interviews with various authors and cooks and film directors, recipes, and our archive of ghost stories. That's my favorite because David Walton reads many of them, and you can go check out ghost stories from around the world, read in his charming British accent. But we are back on What Are You Afraid of, and we have brought back Mr. Don Allison, who was on the show last week and a year before. Bit of a quick bio. Don Allison is a veteran journalist and author. He's a lifelong resident of Williams County, Ohio. He's received numerous Associated Press and United Press International awards for his news, features, and column writing and special section design. Don's weekly column, On My Mind, is a Bryan Times fixture. Now, Don's previous books include I Met a Ghost at Gettysburg, A Journalist's Journey into the Paranormal, Hell on Belle Isle, A Diary of the Civil War POW, and the best of On My Mind, the Bryan Times newspaper columns of Don Allison. You can find his website at www.fadedbanner.com. And the reason we have him back is because he has a new book coming out, which is just a wonderful book. I really enjoyed reading it. It's called I Met More Ghosts in Gettysburg, a follow-up to his previous book, I Met a Ghost in Gettysburg. Welcome back to the show, Don. How are you tonight?
Very good. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, we're glad to have you back. You're such an amazing guest because of your points of view, even your skepticism, and you don't just tell the ghost stories, you tell the stories of the ghost stories, because you're not only a paranormal investigator and ghost story hunter, you're also a journalist. So you're a great guy to read, and I really loved the book, and you're going to get a good review from me up over at Amazon.
Well, thank you.
So one of the areas your books have delved into, and I noticed you've been making an experiment of this, has been some parapsychology. Now, in your book, you define paranormal investigation, and you define parapsychology, and according to the Rhine Research Center, parapsychology is the scientific study of interactions between living organisms and their external environment that seem to transcend the known physical laws of nature. Could you tell us more about the fields of parapsychology?
Sure, and what I find the most interesting is just, I guess, the spiritual side of it, the fact that there are things that aren't tangible. They aren't our normal senses of sight and smell and tactile. It's I think we've all had some of these experiences, a hunch that proved correct, where we just know something when we had no way of knowing it. And there are just so many aspects of it. I could go on for a long time just on that topic, Fox.
Fascinating. So when you mean parapsychology, you mean things like telepathy, telekinesis?
There's just so much of it. The telekinesis to me is quite fascinating. I just feel there are times I've experienced that on my own.
Indeed, and I've always had an ability of empathy, where I don't read people's thoughts, but I can feel what they're feeling.
I am very much that way. Actually, I've been told that I'm an empath.
Indeed, and that would make sense that you're a journalist, telling people stories. So, you in this book, you talk about different things that you experiment with, and one of the things you experiment with is a spirit box or a ghost box. Now, how do you use a spirit box? What is it exactly? And can you share with us some of your experiences with the spirit box that you had at Sachs Bridge?
Yes, and that is really the single incident that really just kind of smacked me between the eyes, as far as the seriousness and what you can really accomplish with paranormal investigation. The background to that, my grandson and I were in Gettysburg. I was offered, because I was registered there as a journalist, the chance to have a ghost investigation at Sachs Bridge, and I thought this was just a touristy thing. This was to entertain my grandson. He was 14 at the time. And we're there, and really nothing happened. This was a 2-hour investigation, and we were an hour and 55 minutes into it. We'd had nothing beyond a couple of shadow figures that they saw and I didn't, and a couple of EVPs that were, to me, rather unremarkable, but a little bit interesting. But we finally had Sachs Bridge to ourselves, and we started getting hits. The ghost box, basically, this was an SB7. It just scans radio stations very quickly and provides a white noise background. The theory is this provides the energy for a spirit to communicate. We started getting, some pretty incredible, voices coming through. Is anyone with us? Yes. How many of you are with us? 7, 8, 9. We got some things. Now, our investigation now is over. It was a cold evening. Our investigator went to start the car to warm it up, and my grandson Connor and I are sitting there, and I'm thinking, okay, if this is Civil War, what would pique a spirit's interest? And I'm pretty skeptical about what really these voices were. So, I said, do you like jokes? And got a very clear, yes, sir. So, interesting. Do you like music? And we got this very clear, coming through the static that is the ghost box, of course. And my grandson, bless his soul, a smart youngster, he says, can you play for us? And absolutely. And we started getting guitar music, acoustic guitar, and what sounded like mandolin. And this was fading in and out, very clear, definitely not blips of radio stations coming through. And I'm just thinking, how did they hoax us? I didn't think this was the real thing. After the music faded out, I said, wow, you're good. And the voice says, thank you. And I said, can you play some more? Yes, sir. And this time harmonica music joined in with the other string instruments. The investigator came back while this music's playing, and I'll never forget the look on her face, wide-eyed and slack-jawed, staring at this spirit box. And then once the music was through, we got more communication. Voice said he was captain from Ohio. He gave us a name. And just different things came through. But I thought, how did they hoax us? They wanted to get a good write-up for their company, from this journalist.
Right.
So I went home to find out how they hoaxed us, and the more I researched, the more I found out no. You cannot broadcast to this thing. This is how they work. You get nothing, you get nothing, you get a lot, and then you get nothing again. And what really convinced me is when I did the research and found out this captain really existed. He was mortally wounded on day one, captured by the Confederates. He died on July 3rd, 1863, as a POW, and he quite likely died at Saxbridge.
Incredible.
Mind-blowing to me, and that's what really convinced me of the viability of the spirit box.
Well, so it works for you at Saxbridge. Now, that's wonderful. And of course, Saxbridge is a popular destination for those going to Gettysburg. I've never actually been there, but I know Phil has been up there a number of times, and I know it's a hot spot for ghost activities. And for anybody interested in checking it out, it is a truss bridge on Waterworks Road in Gettysburg. It's also known as Sook's Covered Bridge and Waterworks Covered Bridge. It's 100 foot. It's a town truss covered bridge over Marsh Creek between Cumberland and Freedom Townships. And you can check that out while you're in Gettysburg and take a Ghost Box app with you on your phone and see if you can pick up what he picked up. That's an incredible story. And this is What Are You Afraid of? Horror and Paranormal Show. This is episode 111, Parapsychology. So Don, continuing to talk about parapsychology. Now in the book, you talk about using dowsing rods. How do these things work?
Well, that's another one of those things that I was actually introduced to them as a high school student by a teacher who had her class. We made dowsing rods out of wire coat hangers, and we went out and we found a main water line coming into the school. Here we are going as a line across. When we got over the water line, all our rods crossed. And that always made an impression on me, but I was pretty skeptical as to their validity when it came to the paranormal. I once found my septic tank at my old house with it, and it wouldn't work for my son, but my grandson found the tank, not knowing where it was, using the dowsing rod. So I think there is some science to it. But I had an experience that really convinced me of their validity just out on an impromptu investigation near the Trossel Barn at Gettysburg. And we had walked around and got nothing, and then all of a sudden, says anyone's with us, and the rods crossed. Interesting. And, I started, saying, well, were you Union or Confederate soldier? I started running down states. None of I got nothing for Confederate states. I was getting nothing for Union states. I was about ready to give up. I hit New York, and I got the rods to cross. And then New Jersey, the rods cross, no other states. And I think, okay, what really is going on here with that? And lo and behold, when I said, New York, where did you fight? The rods pointed to the left. New Jersey, where did you fight? The rods pointed to the right. And when I got home and researched it, they did indeed. There were New York troops right where the rods pointed, New Jersey right where the rods pointed for them. But the science behind it is really what intrigues me. The different experiments have shown that it is minute muscle movements by the person with the rods that does make them work. But I think it goes a step further, and the electromagnetic energy of moving water or a body of water or of spiritual energy, electromagnetic energy, can be the trigger. And I think the person's body actually is part of the whole process. Yes, your muscle movements are making the rods cross, but I think it's the magnetic energy, and your body is just the receptor to that. And, as great a scientist as Albert Einstein believed that dowsing rods worked, at least as far as water is concerned, but I think the process is really the same. The electromagnetic energy is what triggers.
I see what you mean. They're more of a transducer. They're more of a sensor that your body's reading through and showing sort of as a signal.
Exactly.
So dowsing was practiced originally in Germany during the 16th century, and it's funny, it got listed by Martin Luther. People would douse for minerals, gold, rare elements, and he claimed that it broke the first commandment, thus it became associated with occultism. And so it wasn't practiced openly, but it's been used for finding water in deserts or seeking out rare minerals, especially for the last few hundred years. So we have a story you sent over to us from your book, I Met More Ghosts in Gettysburg. And this is what you're telling us, just narrated by David Walton about your use of dowsing rods. And this is Tennessee, Alabama, New York, and New Jersey. And we'll be right back with Mr. Don Allison on What Are You Afraid Of? Horror and Paranormal Show on Parax Radio at Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can also find us at www.whatareyoufraidofpodcast.com for all previous episodes 110 and all major podcast services. And we'll be right back.
Mercy, a new horror medical thriller from author T. Fox Dunham, published by Bloodbound Books. Based on the author's horrific battle with a rare form of lymphoma that involved intense chemotherapy and radiation, Fox turns the horror of his experience into terror on the page.
William Saint is dying of cancer. On most days, death seems like a humane alternative to the treatment. Stricken with fever, William is rushed to Mercy, notorious as a place to send the sickest of the poor and uninsured to be forgotten, and finds the hospital in even worse condition than his previous visit.
Willie's memories faded. He grabbed his sack head, the sack head of the scarecrow, picking at the exposed chicken wire to hold them in. However, the memories fell out of the holes in his face. They wormed and crawled from the leather flesh and the old clothing of the scarecrow, then squirmed and wiggled down his body.
The grounds are unkempt, the foundation is cracking, and like the wild mushrooms sprouting from the fissures of decay around it, something is growing inside the hospital. Something dark.
Fangoria gives Mercy 3.5 out of 4 skulls. Dunham has channeled his many brushes with the other side into the exquisitely rendered, lyrical, supernatural hospital thriller Mercy.
It's feeding on the sickness and sustaining itself on the staff, changing them, and now it wants Willie.
Come now, Mr. Saint. Just a little more of that sweet milk. So salty and so good. You won't miss it. And we ever do so like our delicacies here at Mercy Hospital.
Part medical horror, part supernatural suspense, Mercy is a hard-hitting fever dream of a novel. I enjoyed the hell out of it. Tim Wagner, author of The Way of All Flesh and Eat the Night. Available from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and bookstores everywhere in both print and digital versions.
Life is an addiction.
Let go. Let it all burn.
What are you afraid of?
I'm Tim Wagner, Bram Stoker award-winning author.
Hashtag Grave Girls. This is Katrina Weidman of Destination America's Paranormal Lockdown.
This is Jim Chambers. I'm the author of The Engines of Sacrifice.
This is Jasper Barr, award-winning author of The Final Cut.
And you're listening to What Are You Afraid Of?
What Are You Afraid Of?
To What Are You Afraid Of?
What are you afraid of?
Love it. Fantoxic, please. Fantoxic.
Rat! Where are you going?
I'm going back to the Paranormal View, back where I belong.
Please, take me with you.
No, I'm through with everything here. I want to see if there's something left in life I haven't explored. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, Rat, don't run to them. They talk about ghosts and hauntings, UFOs, and all kind of supernatural scary stuff.
You'll never understand, will you, Scarlet?
No!
Well, that's your misfortune.
Rat, if you go, where shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear. Line.
Oh, you gotta be kidding.
That's the Paranormal View with your host, Henry Foister, Jeffrey Gould, and Barbara Duncan. Every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the Parax Radio Network.
Tennessee, Alabama, New York, New Jersey. A ghost story. Written by journalist Don Allison from his book Met More Ghosts at Gettysburg. A journalist's paranormal journey continues. Read by David Walton. Twice, while in Gettysburg, I was encouraged by paranormal investigators to try my hand at dowsing rods, and I was surprised by the results. I was somewhat familiar with dowsing rods from previous experience in locating drainage lines. Basically, they are a set of L-shaped wires that can cross when the user encounters underground water or in answer to questions posed to an unseen energy or intelligence. My introduction to dowsing rods came in high school, when a teacher had our class use them to find a water line between the street and the school. All of us students ended up in a line, our rods crossed, and the experience made a lasting impression on me. More recently, I used dowsing rods to successfully locate my historic home's septic tank and the grey water line leading from our kitchen. Interestingly, the rods also worked for my grandson, but not for my son. My first encounter with dowsing rods in a paranormal investigation was on Saturday evening, April 22nd, 2017, with the Paranormal View group at the Fairfield Inn near Gettysburg. The previous evening, while in the basement of the inn, medium Kat Gash had shared with us that she sensed the spirit of a Confederate cavalryman from Tennessee who was wounded in the leg. When I again found myself in the basement the following night, this time with a borrowed pair of dowsing rods, I asked a series of questions as a follow-up to Kat's experience. The first was, "Is anyone here with us?" The rods crossed, signifying yes. I had not really expected the rods to move, so I was surprised. I next asked, "Are you a soldier?" The rods crossed again. Next, I decided to mix up the question, not exactly following what Kat sensed the night before. "Are you a Union soldier?" No movement of the rods. "Are you a Confederate?" The rods crossed. "Where are you from? Virginia?" Nothing. And also no movement when I mentioned North and South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Kentucky, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Texas. But when I said Tennessee, the rods crossed. I tried the same approach again. "Are you in the artillery?" No movement. "Infantry?" No movement. "Staff officer?" No movement. "Cavalry?" The rods crossed. "Were you hurt?" The rods crossed. "Where were you hit? In the head?" No movement. "In the shoulder?" No movement. "In the arm?" No movement. "In the stomach?" No movement. "In the leg?" The rods crossed. "Was your leg amputated?" At that point, both rods pointed to my left, towards the basement wall, and the rods failed to move after any of my questions that followed. Needless to say, I was intrigued at this point and a bit incredulous. I could not consciously replicate the same movement of the rods, try as I might. I could only get them to move if I obviously manipulated them. If I held them properly, loosely in each hand, I simply could not consciously force the same movement. I must note it is possible, since I was thinking about the answers to these questions based on Kat's experience, that my subconscious mind created the rod's movement. But what exactly was at work here, I really don't know. When I returned home, I researched the order of battle for Lee's Army of Northern Virginia at Gettysburg and found no Tennessee cavalry units listed. I found no Union Tennessee cavalry units with the Army of the Potomac at Gettysburg either. So I was left to wonder whether my mind or the mind of others there forced the rod's movement, and there really was no soldier spirit present, or whether the orders of battle were incomplete. Or perhaps a cavalryman from Tennessee was there on detached duty, or had joined a unit from another state. When I was in Gettysburg on the evening of Friday, August the 10th, 2018, I took part in an informal ghost hunt through contacts I had made with the Facebook group Paranormal Gettysburg and anything Gettysburg related. We travelled to Sachs Bridge, famous for reports of paranormal activity, and walked around the area and onto the bridge. A member of the Facebook group, Leslie Policastro, lent me a pair of dowsing rods. I tried out Leslie's dowsing rods on the north side of Sachs Bridge, along the field hospital area east of the roadway. I first asked, "Is anyone here with us?" The rods crossed. Since I had family members from Alabama who fought at Gettysburg, my next question came easily to mind. "Anyone from Alabama?" The rods crossed. 15th Alabama. The rods crossed. 47th Alabama. The rods crossed. 44th Alabama. The rods crossed. 4th Alabama. The rods crossed. When I turned and faced towards the bridge and asked, "Where are you?" the rods pointed to the left into the field. When I asked the same question with my back to the field, the rods swung around to each side of me and pointed back at the field. I truly felt an energy at work beyond myself as the rods moved, whether that actually was the case or not. The Alabama units I mentioned were from Evander Law's Alabama Brigade, so it made sense that some of their wounded would make their way to a field hospital near Sachs Bridge, which some in Lee's army crossed to begin their retreat south after Gettysburg. None of my queries regarding Union men or states were followed with movement of the rods. Again, this time I was not expecting the rods to work, and their movements left me puzzled. Still, was my subconscious the source of the movement? We then travelled to an area west of Trussell Farm, on the scene of the second day's fighting. The brick Trussell Barn is a familiar battlefield icon, due to a hole on the west end caused by a cannonball. I took a number of photos in the area, a few of which had orbs, but nothing I considered as real evidence. Here I again tried the dowsing rods. "Is anyone here with us?" The rods crossed. "Are you a soldier?" The rods again crossed. "Where are you from?" I next asked. But when I named off all the Confederate states I could think of off the top of my head, Alabama, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Arkansas, Mississippi and Virginia, the rods did not move. I started naming Union states, and at first there was no movement of the rods. When I named New York and New Jersey, the rods crossed, but not for any others. "Where did you fight?" As I faced east towards the Trussell Barn, in the direction the Confederates attacked, the rod in my left hand pointed to the left, and the rod in my right hand swung to the right. At first I did not understand this, but I thought it over for a bit. Then I wondered if perhaps I was near the line of battle as the Yankees retreated towards Cemetery Ridge. I continued my questioning. "New Jersey?" The rods crossed. "Where did you fight?" The rods both swung to the right. "New York?" The rods crossed. Where did you fight? The rods pointed to the left. At this point I was shaking my head, wondering how this could be. While I was asking these questions, Leslie was taking photographs, and later she showed me her shots. Like my own photos, most of hers showed few or no orbs. But in some of the images, taken while I was getting movement of the dowsing rods, I am surrounded by orbs. I know many believe orbs do not signify anything paranormal, but the timing and sheer number of these orbs caused me to think long and hard. Perhaps my subconscious mind could be behind the rod's movement, but what about the uncanny appearance of a literal swarm of orbs at the same time? Orbs that for the most part were not present in photos taken before and after. Other spots we visited that evening resulted in little or no paranormal evidence, including Iverson's Pits and the Michael Trussell Farm, a Union Field hospital on Sachs Road, where wounded troops in the 2nd, 3rd, 5th and 6th Corps were treated. After I returned home, I researched the area near the Trussell Barn where I received the dowsing rod responses. The Gettysburg Campaign Atlas by Philip Lano indicated that from my vantage point facing east towards the Trussell Barn, there were indeed New York troops at that location, and to my left, including the 39th, 150th, 125th and 126th New York Infantry Regiments. The atlas also showed that New Jersey troops indeed fought to my right. The closest was the 7th New Jersey Infantry. Yet, a jumbled mass of retreating Union troops from several states passed through the area, and Barksdale's Mississippians were among Confederates fighting there. In that light, several Union state responses would have been appropriate. However, I must note that the New Jersey and New York responses were the two most accurate ones based on Lano's atlas. Can I look at this as evidence of spiritual activity, of the ghosts of long-dead Civil War soldiers, or is it due to chance? And what about the timing of the orbs? Is it simply a series of coincidences, against the odds but yet possible? Either way, my experiences that night certainly are food for thought.
Breathe in, breathe out, everybody scream, fuck! I know, I've gone too far this time. My grandpa said, don't be afraid.
Well, here we are again. I thought that perhaps the nightmare was over, but no. I am summoned once again and can only obey. I am in thrall of Fox and unable to resist his powers, his hypnotic powers, masquerading as charm and friendship, his transatlantic, perhaps global powers. And so, every Sunday morning I sit in front of a microphone and read. Every Sunday afternoon I edit the audio file I have been commanded to create. Every Sunday evening I press send on an email to Philadelphia with an MP3 attached and tremble as I await the verdict of my master. I changed my name from David Walton to Brendan Shawland and created music which I liberally sprinkled throughout the internet in websites including SoundCloud and Bandcamp in a pathetic attempt to throw him off the scent. Those hopeless breadcrumbs are still available if you care to listen, so that you will know what not to do when your time comes. That's right. It didn't work. He tracked me down, and I am once again his creature. If you are listening to this, you are in grave danger, and I can only urge you to flee. Flee! Before it is too late, before you find that you too are a voice actor on whatareyouafraidof.com.
Grey Matter Press presents a 21st Century Gothic from John C. Foster, the author of Mr. White. The Isle. There's a secret at the edge of the world. When a deadly menace threatens a remote island community, United States Marshal Virgil Bone digs into the island's macabre past. But some secrets should never be uncovered. Some curses should be believed. And some people will kill to keep it so. The Isle is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other fine retailers.
What happens to a ghost when their home is torn down? No one thinks of the disembodied when they rip down old buildings, dig up cemeteries, and build clean, unhauntable condos. Every year, hundreds of spirits are driven out of their own haunts by the careless living to exist alone with no one to scare. At ParaX Radio, our hosts feel the plight of these evicted disembodied, and we're reaching out to you to please open your heart to one of these lost souls, such as the ghost soldier of the General Wayne Inn or the abandoned spirit cat of Benjamin Rush. So please, please, let a little spooky into your life. Won't you open your house to a ghost without a home?
ParaX.
Explore the darkness.
Find out what goes bump in the night. Did you hear that?
Did you see that? What's that bright light in the sky? Oh, we so need to investigate.
Calling all witches and sensitives.
Explore the paranormal.
With hosts
Shauna
and Vicky from
Geeks Paranormal.
Wednesdays
at 9 Eastern,
8 Central.
Let's explore. This week's guests are
Rachel Marie Booth
and Christopher St. Booth.
April 25th, 2018.
On ParaXRadio.com.
In the future, roving bands of comic book podcasts will savage the wasteland, once known as the Internet. One podcast, the Grolix Podcast, may not be the biggest, may not be the funniest, may not be the most well-spoken. Wait, what was my point again? Oh yes, the Grolix Podcast. Listen to it at grolixpodcast.com. That's GRAWLIX podcast.com.
Well, that was a great story, and that was something that was really cool about your sequel book, I Met More Ghosts in Gettysburg, was that you explore some of these concepts of parapsychology and ghost boxes and dowsing rods, and you give your opinion of them. It's like you were almost reviewing paranormal techniques.
And that, yeah, I had not really thought of it that way, but that really is what I'm doing. Like, hey, this is what my experience has been, and this is my thoughts, my conclusions.
That's great for anybody who wants to get into paranormal investigation. I definitely suggest reading his book, and you can find it at www.fadedbanner.com. Again, check out our website at www.whatayouafraidofpodcast.com for links to his work and more information about Mr. Allison. And he's been on with us for the last couple shows, hanging out with me, T. Fox Dunham, and this is episode 111, Parapsychology. It's been great talking to you, Mr. Allison, and we love having you on the show, and we'll definitely bring you back next year when your next book comes out. And of course, we want to get Tina Marie Ronan on the show too. She's an old friend of the show, and looking forward to talking to her. So we're wrapping up, and it's been great talking to you, but before leaving us tonight, could you share with us one last little ghost Gettysburg or home haunted story with our audience?
Yes, I was in Gettysburg last October, and with all my experiences in my house, with footsteps, noises, being touched, hearing voices, having radios go off and on and change stations, I have never seen an apparition until I was at Gettysburg last October. I was walking back to the Slider House. It's an out-of-the-way building that was a field hospital for the Alabama Brigade after the Round Top fight. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. And I looked down, and there was a gentleman on a horse. The horse was going slowly. The gentleman was kind of slouched over, had a wide-brimmed hat. I looked more closely. It was a Union cavalryman with the, looked like the McClellan saddle, the Union saddle blanket, and after about 1 or 2 seconds, it vanished. And I was just dumbfounded, and I'm looking, and I thought, wait, there was no sound, and this was in kind of scrub woods, and I thought, if this was really a person on a horse, a reenactor, I would have heard something. I ran down, and I realized that a horse couldn't even have gone through there. The trees were too close together, and somehow it would have forced its way in. It would have created a huge ruckus. I'm guessing that must not have been woods at the time of the battle, but it was an incredible experience. You hear of this happening, but finally it happened to me.
Incredible. So you got to see an apparition finally, and that's the place to go, is Gettysburg, to see an apparition. Hopefully my wife and I will be back on St. Patrick's Day, depending on how her job search goes. And just to remind everybody, my book, Destroying the Tangible Illusion of Reality, or Searching for Andy Kaufman, is on sale right now from Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing to celebrate my birthday, which is really victory over Cancer Day, which was on February 2nd, Groundhog's Day, or Impalk. And it's the story of 3 friends, eccentric friends. One of them is dying of cancer. He wants to find his father, and he believes it's the song and dance man, Andy Kaufman, who died in this lung cancer, and they go on a journey to find proof that he was his father, and perhaps even discover evidence that Andy is still alive and hiding. It's a crazy, wacky book about freedom from fear. It's about people, and it's about real America, and you can find that over at Amazon or on our website. Go check it out for 99 cents. So before leaving us, we're talking about Ghost Dawn. Now, have you heard in Cambridge, Professor A.V. Loeb, who's a significant astronomer in the astronomy department. He does a lot of public lectures. He practices what he calls cosmic modesty, the idea that it's arrogant to assume we are alone in the universe, or particularly just a special species. Now, he believes that an alien ship has landed and is among us, that he's seen this thing, and other astronomers have seen it in space, and he thinks it's some sort of probe ship coming back and forth to the Earth. Do you believe in aliens?
I definitely believe that we are not alone in this earth. I had a very influential astronomy professor. I took an astronomy course at the University of Toledo, Dr. Delsem. He has since passed. He was a very prominent astronomer. He was involved when last time Halley's Comet passed by Earth. He was involved in the NASA exploration with that. But he was firmly convinced that because basically the universe has billions of galaxies and stars, that there are countless other civilizations, other life forms out there. And I have no reason to doubt that.
Excellent. I like that eye too. I do think it's arrogant for us to assume we're the only species, going almost back to the days of Socrates and the Ptolemaic model. And he's actually seen a blip of light moving so fast past the sun that it could only have come from another star. And he's seeing all these objects and saying they have to be an alien ship. In fact, he was saying that an alien ship was flying by Jupiter the last time he gave an interview. And he said that one possibility, if you think it could be a spaceship, is what's called an Omama. It's a light sail floating in interstellar space that's sort of debris from advanced technological equipment, perhaps a ship that's broken up over time. But, so it's really cool to think about that we may not only be alone in this life and the afterlife, but we're in a universe full of spirits, and perhaps spirits are just living entities.
Yeah, just the entire field of metaphysics and quantum physics and the possibility of parallel universes, and I believe we need to have very open minds. Thinking back when we thought the Earth was flat, think how far we've come, and I think we still have a long ways to go.
Indeed, and so much to learn, and that's the exciting part about being alive and being young, is that there's so much yet to explore and discover, and we're just finding the tip of the iceberg in space. We need to do some more shows on aliens. I'll get that into the rotation. But, Don, it's been great talking to you, and we're definitely going to have you back on, and hopefully we can get up to Gettysburg and hang out with you and do a show from Gettysburg the next time we're all around, perhaps when your next book comes out. You can find your book at www.fadedbanner.com, along with all your other books, and you can find its prequel book, I Met a Ghost in Gettysburg, over at Amazon.com, and I'll be putting up a nice review for both. And are there any parting words you'd like to pass on to our audience before you head off?
That this is a very, very exciting world. There is a lot we don't understand, and I don't believe that our time on Earth here is all that there is for us. I think the more science does to look into that, the more we can know about it, the better.
And you can check out his previous books, which include I Met a Ghost at Gettysburg, Hell on Belle Isle, A Diary of a Civil War POW, and the best of On My Mind from the Bryan Times newspaper, the columns Don Allison, over at www.fadedbanner.com. We'll have links to that website at www.whatareyourafraidofpodcast.com. Thank you so much, Don, for coming on the show and hanging out with us.
Oh, you are very welcome. The pleasure is mine.
What are you afraid of?
In the summer days, it's fine to be alone. Reinvent your ways, fade into folk song. Just play me some of that old music, something from the hits you can't go wrong. Smoke it back on my weed and hash with me. But the bed's been made and the kids are headstrong. Back from whence you came, you're cooler year long. But there's something in the way again, baby. Tell me what's been going on. Or let's just touch to the candles and leave. Oh, but it gets so cold this way. I hope you will stay long. Reinvent your ways, fade into folk song. And we won't have to lash about all the between us got involved. Or we'll just touch two dead can dance and leave. Oh, but it gets so cold when you lie down on my parade. You say, give me one more try, baby, give me one more try. I say, how can you dislocate the meaning, disassociate from mine? Oh yes, now we ought to know that there's something in the way, baby, something's in the What's that over me? I could never be that way. Where are you going? How have we come undone? Oh, but it gets so cold when you lie down on my parade. You say, give me one more try, baby, give me one more try. I say, how can you dislocate the meaning, disassociate from mine? Oh yes, now we ought to know that there's something in the way, baby, something's in the way.
How far we've come, and I think we still have a long ways to go.
T. Fox Dunham lives in Philadelphia with his wife Allison. He's a lymphoma survivor, cancer patient, modern bard, and historian. His first book, The Street Martyr, was published by Gutter Books. A major motion picture based on the book is being produced by Throughline Films. Destroying the Tangible Illusion of Reality or Searching for Andy Kaufman, a book about what it's like to be dying of cancer, was recently released from Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing, and Fox has a story in the next Stargate anthology from MGM and Fandemonium Books, Points of Origin. Fox is an active member of the Horror Writers Association, and he's had published hundreds of short stories and articles. His motto is Wrecking Civilization, one story at a time.
Phil Thomas is an author and screenwriter from the suburbs of Philadelphia. His screenplays have been produced into feature films False Face and Always from Darkness, and are available in major retailers such as Best Buy and Target, as well as availability on Netflix and Amazon On Demand. His short films can be viewed on his YouTube channel, Film Zero Presents. He is a member of the International Association of Professional Writers and Editors, and he currently writes for Cultured Vultures, Game Skinny, and BloodyDisgusting.com. His first novel, The Poe Predicament, is being published in 2018 by Caliburn Press.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
In Dublin's fair city, where the girls are so pretty, I first set my eyes on sweet Molly Malone as she wheeled her wheelbarrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Alive, alive, oh. Alive, alive, oh. Crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Was a fishmonger, and shorts was no wonder, for so were her father and mother before, and they each wheeled their barrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Alive, alive, oh. Alive, alive, oh. Crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. She died of a fever, and no one could save her, and that was the end of sweet Molly Malone. Now her ghost wheels her barrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Alive, alive, oh. Alive, alive, oh. Crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh.